efforts in the area of digital, financial, and social inclusion. It encompasses the best of governance, excellence in technology and applications, change management, corporate leadership, corporate governance, inclusive growth, citizen services delivery, capacity building, empowerment, and other such softer issues that get normally lost in the glamour and the glitz of industry-sponsored or advertising-focused jamborees. The SKOCH Award is distinctive for its approach of selection of awardees, which is based on nomination, jury evaluation, presentation of shortlisted nominees, focus group discussions, and interactions and peer evaluation, inputs and qualification of a project, person or institution to be considered for the award. The SKOCH Award not only acknowledges exceptional achievers, organizations and individuals, but also spurs inspirational guidance and motivational leadership.
morning. If I could have everyone's attention, please. Can we all be seated? We're ready to get started. Excuse me, hi. Yes, yes. Can I ask everyone to get seated, please? We'd like to get started. Including the front seats? Yes. Including the front seats, please. Good morning, everyone. It's really lovely to have all of you here. Welcome to the SCOTCH India Law Forum and LITFest 2022. We are ready to get started, so I'll call Shri Sameer Kochar, Chairman of the SKOCH Group, to the podium now. He'll inaugurate today's session. Sir.
Good morning to you all. Practically everybody in this room is new to me. People who are even with us virtually are new to me. And even SCOTCH is very new to you. So the only thing I can tell you is that whatever SCOTCH does, we do it from the heart. We do it with a lot of affection and piousness. And I am a big person about value systems and sanskar. So, when you start invoking gods for a prayer, you tell them that agar koi bhul chuk hogi ho to pehle se hi maafi mang rahe hain, because I have never really dealt with judiciary or lawyers in the past and I don't know what's the correct way to do so, but I will treat you like I treat any fellow human being that I respect. So this is the first time we are doing India Law Forum, and I really don't know what I say to people who are far more educated, far more experienced, far more well-read than I can ever aspire to be. I unfortunately had formal education only till schooling, which is class 12. And after that, I started working as a bellboy. I used to lift bags, and I finished my graduation by correspondence. So I unfortunately am not in the erudite category. All I have to share is my stories, my anecdotes, my life, and why I do what I do. I was a practitioner of poverty for the first 17 years of my life. Both my parents were physically challenged. So I do know a thing or two about being excluded. So what I really think about often is, can there be a world where there are no exclusions, where there are no divisions, no exploitations, and no hatred? Probably true utopian, not going to happen, but we have to all keep trying. I am just one of the fellow travelers with you all in that path. Just because utopia is never going to happen doesn't mean that we do not try. The first judge that I surprisingly met in my life was Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya. That was 2 months back. So I met the first judge in my life 2 months back. And I knew all of 2 lawyers before that. I spent 2 hours with him, listening to him with rapt attention. And all I can say about that meeting is that it was like being in the presence of God. I felt closer to God for those 2 hours that I was sitting in front of him. I just wanted to keep looking at his face and keep listening to whatever he was saying, because he was talking about everything that is good, everything that is moral. And he talked about a concept of what we owe each other as a society. As I said, I'm not very well read. I couldn't grasp the gravity of what he was trying to say to me at that point in time. Till just yesterday, I said, so when I do this speech, what do I talk about? And that word stuck in my head, what we owe each other. And then I Googled and I found that there is this lady called Mona Shofik. She heads the London School of Economics. And she's done this book about what we owe each other, a new social contract, where she redefines the role of a welfare state. She says that, all of us as adults in different phases of our life contribute to the society. So the role of a welfare state should not be that of redistribution of wealth, the Robin Hood function as she calls it. It should actually be to look after its people through the various stages of their life, when they're old, when they're infirm, when they're in need of health, so on and so forth. And she feels that state and even the society should have these functions as social contracts. Well, I completely agree with her end objective that the old, the infirm, the needy should be taken care of. And it is essential for having a just and fair society. But I completely disagree with the fact that any state, more so India, with 1.3 billion people, has the capability of carrying such a burden, and whether as society and families we should be waiving contracts at each other that I did this for you, I paid for your education, so you better look after me in my old age. Should that be a contract? I think we should rather be guided by a moral compass, and that is a moral compass that possibly we all got in the lap of our mothers or teachings of our fathers. Unfortunately, a fallout of economic growth and development has resulted in an erosion of that moral compass. In fact, we were having this discussion on Pinky Anand's book, and Mahesh Jethmalani and Pinky Anand were saying it is about the biggest criminal cases in India. And she said the role of civil society is very important in terms of venting and making sure that the right thing is done, and the case in point was a Nirbhaya case. And I said that when we were younger, we were there in Ranga Billa case, the outrage was a lot more, even without any social media, without any connectivity, without people being so rich or being so educated. Today it takes a lot. It takes the most heinous of the things to happen before civil society gets its act together and starts talking about it or outraging about it. Part of that, possibly the media has to be blamed as well. So how do you make sure that this outrage happens in earnestness? I think the responsibility as parents is on all of us. That moral compass that was given to us by our parents, we must pass it on to the next generation. I talked about my mother. My mother was blind. She was poor as a mouse. She was richer than my father because she could always stash away whatever little money we had under the mattress and make sure that whenever there was some dire need, she'd fish it out. But she looked after me well. And there were days we were hungry. We had one meal to eat. We did not have the second one. And I was talking to Justice Deepak Misra yesterday, and he said that hunger can change a person, can make a person commit a sin, it can make a person very angry, it can make a person very depressed. And I shared with him, I said, sir, I learnt a new word from him, sublimation. I said, sir, it didn't happen to me. He says, you've been able to sublime these emotions into your consciousness and do something greater. How did that sublimation happen? Is whenever I was troubled or hungry or was short of something, my mother would tell Mata about it. She was a great believer in Mother Goddess, and she would tell me to tell God about it. And in my head as a kid, I would have that conversation with God, and my worries would ease, and I knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Now those conversations with God do not happen very often. Now we turn to courts and a legal system to reset our moral compass, to get liberties, to get freedoms, and to get equality redefined in the contemporary context. I believe India is too large to bring about a person by person change. That job still remains family, but it is the judiciary that is helping bring about that change in a much larger social context and a population-wide field of impact. And for that we've gathered here today to salute the institutions and the people who have been doing this yeoman service, the things people know about that they did, things people do not know about they did. We are trying to bring out these things document them, make them a part of contemporary history so others can take note of, learn from and be inspired, and hopefully we have another generation with a good sense of morality ahead of us. With that, I hand over to Gursharan Danjal, I think. Oh, okay. So with that, we present to you a biographical film that we did on Justice Venkatachalaya.
Justice Venkatachalaya was born in Bangalore on the 25th of October 1929. He did his schooling from Fort High School and graduated in science from Central College, Bangalore. He had a desire to do medicine, but his father was not very keen on that, so he took to studying law. His father, Mr. Narayana Rao, was an eminent lawyer and was also the founder principal of the Government Law College. Justice Venkatachalaya studied there and passed out in 1951, having stood first in his class. He then joined his father's chambers. The early passing of his father came as a shock to the young lawyer. He had no choice but to carry the burden of reputation and also the pending caseloads from his father's practice. The difficult circumstances served to strengthen his resolve and were possibly a catalyst into his evolution of becoming a lawyer of great eminence. Of course, the people who knew him even in those days remember him as a rather remarkable man.
The great Justice Krishna Iyer described Justice Venkatachalaya as that great jurist of light and learning.
Is the definition of what a judge should be, which is difficult for most of us.
My brother had the brain as his weapon, and he sharpened it, honed it by reading books, by studying.
Whenever you meet him, you will be elevated, you will be enlightened.
Very independent, maintained the integrity of the office very high.
There are many chief justices who fade away after retirement. Justice Venkatachalaya has certainly not faded away. He still remains very active at this age of something like 93 years.
Everything about childhood is interesting. In the sense, we were a middle-class family, and neighborhood was all middle-class. All of us were cricket fans. But somehow my elder brother had that kind of leadership right from an young age. We used to follow him.
Venkatachalaya was not a fashionable or flamboyant lawyer. He was a sound lawyer, very deeply rooted in legal theory and legal philosophy. In fact, he would say that his father was really a legal philosopher.
I greatly profited from his meticulous notes. He was a case which I thought was impossible. The client was saying, "No, sir, your father was not pessimistic about it. Please look into it." And then I saw in one small sentence that told the whole thing. The case told that the fundamental was different.
Venkatachalaya as a young boy, this is what I have heard from him, and was asked to read the leader in the Hindu every day to the grandfather. And he would be given some small pocket money, 1 anna or something in those days. And if he faltered in his pronunciation or intonation, there would be a tap on the head. So that's perhaps the way the young boy was tutored and inculcated into reading and learning.
Those were very gracious days and leisurely times. Society didn't have to face the kind of challenges that it has to face today.
People who have known him even in those days always remember him as a marked man. not someone who reaped rich harvests in terms of money.
In many cases I returned the fee. In one case I returned, I told him I have worked 3 days, you give me my fees 3,000. He had put in 30 or 35,000 in the plate, I returned it.
On the eve of his elevation to the Supreme Court, where the then Law Minister, Mr. Shiv Shankar, had met him at a wedding reception.
And he said, the Prime Minister must also know whom he is appointing. It's the procedure that you should call on the Prime Minister.
He said, I'm sorry, but I'm not in the habit of meeting anyone, leave alone the Prime Minister, with whom I have no work.
He even said, caution that I might be putting my appointment at stake. I told him I don't have the impertinence to interfere with the course of providence. If that happens, it will be for the good of the country.
So shall I convey this to the Prime Minister? Please do convey to the Prime Minister exactly the same words. I understand the Prime Minister felt happy and conveyed to the Attorney General, Mr. Parasharan.
He said, Rajiv Gandhi sent for me, Prime Minister, and told me I am proud to be a Prime Minister of a country. There are still judges like this. Kindly announce his name today before he withdraws his consent. Mr. Nariman himself has also told me this. His courtroom was like a classroom where you did get education. It is said that wherever Napoleon stood, that's the center of the battlefield. Wherever Venkatachalaya sat, whether as judge number 7 or judge number 4 or judge number 3, that was the center of the bench. And this was on the eve of his taking over as Chief Justice, and he said, now of course the center is rightfully his as he takes over as the Chief Justice of India. The great gentleman law. Just the previous day, before the new Chief Justice is sworn in, the outgoing and the incoming Chief Justices are entertained to a dinner. He said, Chief Justice, you will find my relationship with you cordial. I told him, the Chief Justice and the Prime Minister on cordial terms is not in the interest of democracy. I expect our relationship to be proper.
Justice Venkatachalaya's contributions to improving the speed of dispute resolution have been phenomenal.
The very first thing I did was to appoint the Ahmedabad Institute of Management to study the case law management and advise us how international institutions are working, similar institutions, and how we should upgrade our methods.
At the time when Justice Venkatachalaya was the Chief Justice, if my memory serves me right, the backlog had been reduced to something like 28,000.
Cases are pending for 15 years, where it should not be pending for more than 15 months. It could all be streamlined if you take one strong look at it and say which part of our procedure is judicial, which is purely administrative and managerial in nature, which can be handled to systems experts, and the pure judicial side could be handled by the judges themselves.
He brought that lens of human development in everything that he has done, whether it's the Human Rights Commission or the Constitution Review Commission or what he's done subsequently.
He said, I want you to come as Director General in the National Human Rights Commission. Then I told him, this is what the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister has said. They are sending me as ambassador. And he asked me not to commit myself to anything. He said, what is their ambassadorship? He will fly a flag and that huge... But here we can do something substantive to this country. Human rights are under stress here.
Because the two things, vastness of the problem, hugeness of the problem. Administration has now devolved itself into coherent, concentrated action. And third is misleading statistics. These three things are the bane of this country.
UN Commissioner for Human Rights said that India, under his chairmanship of the NHRC, showed how even with or without provisions in the charter or the enactment, how with the correct people at the helm of affairs, human rights become meaningful.
And that is what is his deep philosophical principle which is also reflected in what he has done post-retirement in Bangalore, whether it is with the Sri Sathya Sai Institute, whether it is with the Public Affairs Center, whether it is with the foundation.
Sri Venkatachalaya ji has inspired and motivated and led the Samatvam Trust to launch successfully 4 projects for the poor and needy people with diabetes and related problems.
When I spoke to him about it, he was the first one to provide me a substantial amount of donation to the trust. Most of the judges, for example, after retirement they take an assignment. He said, no, I have been the Chief Justice of India. After holding that post, I will not go and take any work for which payment is going to. My pension, I will live on my pension.
Justice Ravindran told me that, and I agree. He said, Sudheesh, his house in Baspuri is an open house. I said, yes, very true. And he himself calls it a free legal aid clinic.
I was walking down the corner of the road. Just near the corner there was a middle-aged woman from the village. So she comes up to me and says, there is an old man here who gives free advice and justice. Where is he? Where can I meet him? That was one of the most touching moments for me.
He has a kind of spiritual reverence. Anybody who is in contact with him, it rubs off on you.
He came to see me to my sister's house. So some brother of his, he told me to sing a song. So I sang this song. Madhava Mamava Deva Krishna Yadava Krishna Yadukula Krishna Madhava Mamava Deva
She was an extraordinary person. I didn't know, she also came from a small family, like us, a middle class family. But she was extremely spiritual person, as it turned out in later life.
I have to help him, but now in his old age. But he gets up early morning and gives me very, very good coffee. I will take on the bed itself and enjoy it.
One common thing every time I used to tell when I came back from school, I was talking about success, career, jobs, money and all that. He would say, what is the qualification to be the Lord Chancellor of England? Then I would say, what? He said, first thing, you should be a gentleman. It doesn't matter if you know a little law. So he always focused on being a gentleman, helping others.
Tata really loves me, and ever since I was little, he's been playing with me, and I enjoy playing chess with him. He's really smart, and I can't beat him most of the time. Whenever I have any doubts, he instantly gives me the solution, and I always look forward to having deep conversations with him. Usually when we have a meal together, and I feel that it really helps me a lot.
I am personally grateful to God for the long innings that He gave me. But when I reflect upon the predicament of our society and fellow men, it looks as if we collectively, as a nation and as a people, could have done much better.
The man was as great as a judge, and for years and years to come, memory will hold back the door. And those who have had the good fortune of knowing him in whatever manner, appearing before him, sitting with him, talking to him, would always remember his great magnanimity and unfeigned humility.
We worship the dust of the lotus feet of Honorable Sri Venkatachalaya, so he is our God, living God on earth.
A banyan tree shelters, so has he. All those who have come in touch with him, had contact with him, have learned, have grown and have transformed. That, I think, is his true greatness.
A tree like a banyan tree is completely selfless. It stands there in the heat, provides shade to others, and is not in the business of proclaiming its existence, nor does it proclaim what it is doing for others. It is happy just providing shade and shelter to others.
Trees provide fruit for everyone, and in all their selflessness do not consume the fruit themselves. They provide shade to everyone and selflessly endure the heat themselves. The banyan tree's selflessness is a great metaphor for Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya, a towering personality who lived a life of selflessness, and he deserves a gratitude and a resounding applause of over 1 billion Indians.
Ladies and gentlemen, Scotch Challenger Lifetime Achievement Award for Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya. Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya is adjudged the most erudite and urbane judge who has adorned the Supreme Court of India. A judge with a deep knowledge of the philosophy of law and the ways of men, he provided moral and intellectual leadership. During his term of 7 years at the Supreme Court, he authored 90 judgments and was a part of 482 benches. His commitment to reducing the pendency of cases and making the judiciary more and more accountable was unwavering. He served as the Chief Justice of India between 1993 and 94 and authored the Constitutional Bench judgment in the Bhopal gas leak tragedy case, in addition to many more. Justice Venkatachalaya did splendid work as a chairman of the National Human Rights Commission and continues to work on anti-corruption and human rights issues. He is a man and a judge for all seasons. He is a personification of sweetness and light, verily a living legend. A big round of applause for Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya, and equally deserving of a standing ovation.
All stand up, applaud for him. Justice Venkatachalaya, this is a very small award compared to what you are and what you've done. I hope you accept this. This is an honor of, and people of, you made Supreme Court of India as People's Court of India, and we will never forget that. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Would you like to address us, sir? Can you hear me, sir?
Oh, you?
Yeah. Sir,
You want me to talk?
Yes, sir. If you could kindly give your acceptance.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. Esteemed Shri Samir Kocharji, esteemed Shri Fali Nariman, esteemed Chief Justice Deepak Misra ji, esteemed Dr. Vivek Debroy, and all the respected awardees, esteemed invitees, gracious ladies and gentlemen. I am deeply touched by this gesture on the part of Shri Samir Kocharji choosing me for this award, rescuing me from 30 years of anonymity accept this in all humility and reverence. But I seek your kind permission of all of you to dedicate this award to those great lawyers and judges who have made the Supreme Court of India a great institution. In the early 50s of the last century, I had the privilege of sitting in the court hall of the Supreme Court, watching the proceedings in awe as a young lawyer. I had the opportunity of witnessing over the past 8 decades the great changes in society. India's independence and the making of the Indian Constitution were the most sublime spiritual events which changed the way we live. The debates in the Constitutional Assembly rose to spiritual heights in response to the ambitions of a great mass of people, great mass of humanity, grimly struggling to be reborn into freedom and a life of dignity. Post-World War aspirations for a conflict-free world and protection of human rights informed our constitutional values and aspirations. Yet our basic ambitions for a clean electoral system, an honest corruption-free public administration, and a system of speedy justice have remained largely unrequited. Confucius cautioned that it is dangerous to live in interesting times. The world of technology transforming our lives every day. Its exploits are mind-blowing. Newer concepts of property and wealth, and newer ideas of economic privileges, hitherto unknown to our economic and legal systems, are emerging. Masses of humanity will be kept out of the reach of these sophisticated mechanisms and aggravated by inept and corrupt and inefficient political responses and innate weaknesses of the legal system. The political systems and political leaders are yet to comprehend and grasp the magnitude of the imminent changes, resulting in cynicism and disillusionment. Cynicism is a tool of destruction and not a tool of reconstruction. Hamilton and John Adams of the United States of America spoke of the destructive power of a disillusioned populace. Democracy is often conceived as merely as a product, the outcome of a process identified as periodic, free and fair elections. That is the definition of democracy in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. But there are other moral, spiritual criteria and inclusive concepts of the idea of a real democracy. Less democracy degenerate into a mere majoritarian elective despotism. Ladies and gentlemen, in regard to the electoral system, John Stuart Mill's sovereign remedy for the ills that attend democracy was proportional representation. In praise of Mill, John Morley, who was his great admirer, said, "Respect for him became an element of men's own self-respect. The right to have a grievance heard was the right to have the grievance redressed. He believed ardently in the justice of proportional representation, a scheme by which like-minded voters of a sufficient number could, as it were, form their own constituency." But Pandit Nehru thought that was a source of perpetual coalition. Years afterwards, Mill himself wrote, "As far as I have been able to observe, it has the doctrine of proportionate representation has found favor with nobody." The more immediate and important concerns of today are the way in which we harness the exploits of science and technology. Society is yet unable to grasp the magnitude of the demand that these changes make on the educational, judicial, and administrative systems. Many economic forces unleashed by the new technologies may tend to remain outside the official system and outside state controls. Many share the view that the prime focus should be on the system of administration of justice and legal education. The Bar Council of India has a great responsibility of defining methods to integrate legal education with the influence of the consequences of the influence of modern technology on society and the emerging new economies. Law degrees must envisage constant and periodic institutional revision for every graduate to come back to the academia to update his knowledge and skills with regular periodicity. The academic content and curricula need more comprehensive domain knowledge of the areas of law and technology and the intensity of their interaction, Political societies, states, political societies and political states and social organizations were formed by mutual agreement as businessmen organize their own goods to guarantee the right of citizens, because men uncombined found it difficult to make their rights secure. Exercise of physical force became the monopoly of the state. State cannot betray this great trust. Ultimately, the greatest debate of this century will be what we owe each other. A reassessment of the social contract spoken of from time to time, and even from times immemorial, from Plato, John Locke, Rousseau, to modern times. The era of Indian form of quietism is over. Looking back these 70 years since freedom, one dominant emotion that overtakes me is that as a nation, we could have perhaps managed better or mismanaged better. The debate will be on a global scale, in a non-trivial sense. That is the implication of the global democratic urge. Man is incomplete by himself. He needs the companionship of his fellow men for his own fulfillment. Democracy provides the highest and the finest opportunities for this mutual enrichment. Brandeis caution, either you have democracy or the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. You cannot have both. Ladies and gentlemen, people have a right to dream. It's our duty to give meaning to this world. People have a right to dream. It's our duty to give meaning to this world. Worship of humankind is the new religion. True culture is the sensitive awareness of the feelings of others. Culture does not imply an authority outside ourselves, but is a measure of all wise and beautiful things. A country worth living in cannot get on without reverence to culture. I have a word of friendly advice to the young lawyers. Be careful about what you take out of life. There is an old saying, take what you want, God said. Take you want, God said. Take it and pay for it. It was Bishop Wilson's caution. Never go against your best light. Never go against the best light you have. Secondly, take care that your light be not darkness. Ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply touched and moved by the gesture. I am grateful to Samir Kocharji, but I must tell you that in the period in which I had something to do with the work of the Supreme Court, great amount of contribution was from Justice Ahmadi and Justice Verma. Justice Ahmadi masterly guided the process which I started, and result was for everyone to see. From nearly 4.5 lakh of cases, the Supreme Court almost reached a zero-arrear court. It had just 19,000 at one point of time. That was all because of the great work of the great judges we had. We had a team which was a very noble team, and I'm deeply indebted to all of you for your blessings. I am 93 now, and Samir Kocharji has given me new enthusiasm to look up to the world for some contribution I may yet make. Thank you. I'm most grateful to each one of you for your kindness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justice Venkatachalaya, for such inspiring words. Thank you once again. Scotch Star of India Award, former Attorney General of India, Mr. Soli J. Sorabjee. Late Mr. Soli Jahangir Sorabjee is amongst those few jurists endowed with great qualities of head and heart, who played many parts and was considered a legend. He was one of the all-time greats both as a lawyer and a man. In 1971, he was designated as the senior advocate of the Bombay High Court, served as Solicitor General of India from 1977 to 1980, and served as Attorney General of India from 1989 to 1990, and once again from 1998 to 2004. He was the only person to have held the office of the Attorney General of India for 2 terms. He was a renowned human rights lawyer appointed by the United Nations as a special rapporteur for Nigeria, and later as chairman of the UN Subcommission on the Promotion and Protection of Human Rights from 1998 to 2004. He was a champion of freedom of speech and expression and defended freedom of press. For about 60 years, Sorabjee helped in building brick by brick the edifice of India's constitutional law and the administrative law. A great round of applause for him.
Mrs. Sorabjee, Soli ji, to my mind, stood for freedom of speech and human rights. From a grateful civil society, this is a humble token of our affection. He left us early, at a time perhaps his services were needed the most, his voice was needed the most, and I hope that you accept this award on his behalf.
Thank you very much. Mr. Samir Kocharji, Dr. Gursharan Dhanjal, Justice Venkatachalaya, Justice Deepak Misra, Fali and Sudheesh. My family and I, my children and I, are extremely thankful to you for this award. And we do appreciate that you have given this award to him as a special one. Justice Venkatachalaya and Justice Deepak Misra are also being awarded today, and Soli must be smiling from where he is to know that he is in such distinguished company as Justice Venkatachalaya and Justice Deepak Misra. He admired both these judges and respected them. And Justice Venkatachalaya, I must tell you that sometimes when Soli came home, he would talk about the erudition in your judgments and was most appreciative. Justice Deepak Misra was a good friend to Soli, and the two of them went together to Nagpur for some award which the Parsi community was giving them. Soli was always fond of the English language, and Justice Deepak Misra, I think, was also very fond of the English language and liked to quote literature from there. Soli remembered that. And we had many instances where Soli liked to talk about the various judges. Soli was an extremely good mimic, and he could mimic the judges in the court. He came home, and one would think that this was part of the court proceedings that he was relating, because he was so good at mimicking. He was extremely good also at mimicking lawyers, and many times he fooled the, I'm not very good with the tech, I'm not very good at tech savvy, so therefore I put off the video. Soli would mimic lawyers also, and many times he'd catch them on the wrong foot. His human rights and freedom of speech were two angles where he would never compromise. He would always be fighting for human rights and freedom of speech, and whenever he found that some instance had happened where a person was deprived of human rights and freedom of speech, he would offer his services pro bono so that something could be done for them. Again, when lawyers came to him for advice, he would tell them frankly that law was not a business and they should take their profession seriously and not think of only accumulating fees. So these were some of the things that I would like to mention about Soli. Where he is just now, he must be smiling at the company that has gathered here today to honor him. And I'm sure, I hope and pray that God has accepted the services that he rendered here whilst he was on earth. Thank you very much.
Scotch Challenger Award for Exemplary Services to Law and Liberty, Justice Deepak Misra, former Chief Justice of India. Chief Justice Misra, the 45th Chief Justice of India, has had a long and illustrious career, serving the nation in various judicial capacities, including that of the Chief Justice of the Patna High Court and Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court. He was sworn in as the Chief Justice of India in August 17. Chief Justice Misra's gavel thundered the Supreme Court as he gave several notable judgments for individual freedoms and personal liberties in India, from holding that the right to reputation is a constituent of Article 21 and therefore a fundamental right, declaring Sabrimala open to women of all ages, declaring Section 377 and Section 497 of the IPC to be unconstitutional, and bringing greater transparency and accountability to the Supreme Court through live streaming. He also ensured justice was delivered by upholding the executions of the Nirbhaya perpetrators and Yaqub Menon. Ladies and gentlemen.
Honorable Justice Venkatachalaya, former Chief Justice of India, Honorable Justice Ravindran, Mr. Fali Nariman, Mrs. Soli Sorabjee, esteemed dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. It is always a great pleasure to be conferred an honor along with people of esteem. I feel deeply delighted to be in the company of former Chief Justice Venkatachalaya, the grand nonagenarian and innovative jurist with immense passion for justice and liberty. Fali Nariman, whose articulation on any point of law is legally logical and nuanced, but never rhetoric. I deeply miss Soli Sorabjee, a great senior, a personal senior friend and crusader of liberty, dignity, and justice. I must, without any hesitation and reservation, congratulate Mr. Samir Kochar and his team to conceive the idea of Scotch Hour and include the field of law. All of us speak of law and justice. It is to be borne in mind that justice is the element vital of any adjudicatory system. All of us are obligated to remember what learned hand had said, I quote, if we are to keep our democracy, there must be one commandment, thou shalt not ration justice, unquote. It is true for any civilized democratic body politic, and I must immediately add that liberty is the filament of the concept of justice. Without liberty, the spine of democracy is broken and the ligament is gravely injured. Liberty does not come automatically. It is to be constantly fought for. In this fight of the citizen, the bar and the bench have a primary role. There has to be development of free thought, and the said progress should be celebrated with glory. There is some boundary of law, but that has to be very thin, very narrow. In the name of discipline, liberty cannot be mortgaged to order, and justice cannot be guillotined on the bedrock of contrived doctrine of social balance. It should never be seen as an idea of curiosity, but the essential grammar of condition of living. I would never like to call liberty a paradox. Some of the jurists have emphasized on the idea of adjustment. I am of the view that an imaginative anarchy or situation cannot constitute the anchor of adjustment. It has to be anarchy in reality or a situation in actuality. Otherwise, both liberty and justice shall be sent on a vacation. We as a democracy cannot afford to do it. We should never forget that the citizenry looks up to the adjudicatory system, and I would never like to barter liberty with all the pearls of the sea, or for that matter, with all the diamonds of the earth. The concept of justice mothers liberty. The intent should be that mother's concern and the child's love are sustained. The sustenance should not be statistical but realistically pure, and the locomotion of liberty should never be arrested. In 21st century, when the human race is on the path of progression, the discussion, the deliberation, and the debate must relate to social concern and how to sustain liberty and dignity. And I'm sure the generations to come will try to fight for it and try to bring electricity to this society and graph a new grammar of liberty. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. May I now invite Mr. Fali Nariman, eminent jurist and the senior advocate, Supreme Court of India, for his reflections. He is joining us online.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Sudheesh Pai and I have been asked to say a few words about Justice Venkatachalaya. Referring to him in a few words is difficult, almost impossible, but I will try. But first of all, let me say that I am delighted that today there have been citations for my very old and great colleague of yesteryear, Soli Sorabjee, a citation in respect of which has been received by his wife Zina also a very old and dear friend of my wife Betsy and of mine, as well as a citation for a Chief Justice before whom I had practiced frequently, Chief Justice Misra, and who figures in a book that I have written in the year 2018 titled God Save the Honorable Supreme Court. It was soon out of print, but it has been reprinted in 2021. And if you haven't read it, I do request you to try and get it and read it. I salute the memory of dear Soli and heartily congratulate the distinguished Chief Justice of yesteryear, Deepak Misra. I miss dear Soli at the bar, and I sorely miss Deepak Misra on the bench. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to the subject of my talk. You may be surprised that a judge who held office for almost 8 years in the country's highest court is today being honored and feted nearly 3 decades after he ceased to hold office as judge. But believe me, I am not surprised, because honoring a man most noble in heart and mind does not have a time frame. Not the senior most judge of the High Court of Karnataka, from where he was elevated. Justice Venkatachalaya was appointed judge of the Supreme Court in October 1987 because news of his expertise and skills as a high-ranking judicial dignitary had circulated far and wide. But Chief Justice Pathak, who was the son of that learned and delightful stalwart from Eastern India, Gopal Swarup Pathak, who honored the country by becoming its vice president. As I said, Chief Justice Pathak did not rely on mere hearsay. He himself went to Bangalore, inquired from members of the bar and bench, came back to Delhi and made his recommendation to government. This is how I believe judges of high courts should invariably be selected for appointment as judges of the Supreme Court of India. That is because the Chief Justice himself has looked into his or her superior merits and has approved the same. When this is not done, and judges of the High Court are picked out from a long list of names from out of a hat, it causes heartburning amongst the senior most who have given up their best in the High Courts. But let me tell you why I speak today about a person whom I regard as having been a great judge. I am not surprised, Mr. Kocher, that you are today honoring Chief Justice Venkatachalaya. Justice Rohinton Nariman, soon after he retired from his 7-year stint on the bench, published only last year a book in 2 volumes titled Discordant Notes, The Voice of Dissents in the Court of Last Resort. In it, he records and recalls what he calls the great dissents since 1950. And would you believe it, there are only 9 of such great dissents. The 1988 judgment of Justice Venkatachalaya in Antule's case, a judgment handed down very soon after he joined the Supreme Court, is one of them. This is how Justice Nariman puts it, and I quote, "The dissenting judgment of Venkatachalaya J in Antule is remarkable in that it is an emphatic repudiation of every single conclusion reached by the majority judges, being a majority of 5 in a 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court. What is even more remarkable is the courage shown by Justice Venkatachalaya as the junior-most member of the bench, being certain that the law as he saw it was flouted on every score, only in order to set right what the majority saw as being an injustice done to the petitioner. unquote. The majority judgment with which Justice Venkatachalaya disagreed had held, contrary to a binding 9-judge bench decision of 1967 in Mirajkar's case, that a judicial order by a constitution bench of the Supreme Court can never violate fundamental rights. In the year 1960, an American author, Harper Lee, wrote a novel. It became a bestseller and won the Pulitzer Prize. Its title was To Kill a Mockingbird. It has become a classic of modern American literature, and it is taught in the United States in high schools and middle schools. In it, there is the following sentence: the one thing that doesn't abide by majority rule is a person's conscience. The one thing that doesn't abide by majority rule is a person's conscience. The conscience of Justice Venkatachalaya, then one of the junior-most judges of the Supreme Court, did not permit him to agree with the majority view, and that is why he boldly disagreed. I recall that more than 30 years ago, I had attended with my wife an inaugural address delivered in New York to members of the International Bar Association. It was a big event. The speaker was the then Chief Justice of the New York Court of Appeals, America's most prestigious federal court. The judge began his address by telling his audience that when he was first appointed to his exalted office, he took his own wife to see the court. And in the courtroom of the Chief Justice, he said to her in soft, reverent tones, "This, my dear, is where Chief Justice Benjamin Cardozo sat, and it is in this court that I will now sit." He believed that his wife would be suitably impressed, but she was not. All that his wife said to him, not too softly, not too reverentially, was, "Yes, my dear, and after 50 more years and 5 more Chief Justices, it will still be Justice Benjamin Cardozo's court." After practicing exclusively and continuously in this country's highest court for nearly 70 years, before a long succession of innumerable Chief Justices, I have come to regard court number 1 in the Supreme Court of India as the Venkatachalaya court. And this is not just because he was a robust and erudite judge, but to me, he had that enduring quality which no judge of the Supreme Court has yet exhibited. That rare gift of sharing his phenomenal knowledge and learning with all his fellow beings. When sitting in court, whether it was in courtroom number 4 at first, or later in courtroom number 3, or still later as he advanced in seniority in courtroom number 2, and finally in courtroom number 1, his companion judges and the advocates who appeared before him were convinced of his superiority, both in intellect and integrity, and were enlightened by his knowledge of matters and events. I recall that I got to know and appreciate him when he handed over to me one afternoon in court number 1 in a case which had nothing to do with the book at all that he handed over. A most famous book. It was not in print at all, as all published works go, but it was a book handwritten by the hand of the late Lord Hailsham, England's Lord Chancellor, for 10 long years from 1979 to 1987. And its title was Values, Collapse and Cure. I had never seen or read it before, but it made a profound impression on me. And even at the possible risk of exceeding my allotted time, let me read to you the final paragraph in Lord Hailsham's handwritten book on values. A quote, "Forever, truth is better than falsehood. Kindness is better than brutality. Virtue is better than vice. Beauty is better than ugliness." But what exactly is truth? What falsehood? What exactly in a given context is true kindness? What virtue? What vice? These are questions to which our hypotheses are never more than provisional and always subject to revision as we plod our way through the wilderness of experience. Curiously enough, it is at this final point that we are compelled to say that of which we cannot speak intelligibly is about which one is bound to keep silence. But it is the silence of worship, not of ignorance, unquote. So, ladies and gentlemen, to have known Venkatachalaya is to have known and appreciated the importance of true wisdom. He is not just a man and a judge, as the title of Sudheesh Pai's excellent book proclaims. To me, he was and he will always remain a man and a judge for all seasons. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nariman, for taking us down a very sweet memory lane. With this, as you rightly mentioned, the man and the judge, the biographer of Justice Venkatachalaya, and the person who is also working on a similar volume for Mr. Soli Sorabjee, I have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Sudheesh Pai.
Good day, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, namaskar. It's indeed a proud privilege to speak about two extraordinary men. But following a giant who has spoken before me, and to talk about two colossi is a very onerous task which I shall endeavor to fulfill. We honor and celebrate the life and work of a great master, Justice Manipali Narayan Rao Venkatachalaya. And we also light the memory of yet another great master, Soli Jahangir Sorabjee. It has been my good fortune to have known both of them very intimately for about 4 decades. And it's not without a lump in my throat that I speak today. Paying tribute to learned hand, Justice Frankfurter wrote, "The individual contribution of judges is absorbed in the anonymity of the coral reef by which the judicial process shapes the law. Their name and fame are writ on water. In the course of a century, the acclaim of a bare handful survives." Chief Justice Venkatachalaya, who has been conferred with the SCOTCH Challenger Life Achievement Award, undoubtedly belongs to that select class. In the course of a century, the acclaim of a bare handful survives. Indeed, Lord Bingham, himself an all-time great, referred to Justice Venkatachalaya as presently the most learned judge in the common law tradition. High praise from high authority, and indeed very well deserved. Truly erudite, his learning is and outlook. He stood out from the rest, mellow, not above, but apart from the bustle of life. Justice Stephen Breyer, who would shortly be demitting office from the United States Supreme Court, has been referred to as the last romantic of the court. Justice Breyer has always held fast to the belief that the Supreme Court has the ability to deliver just and workable solutions to all the problems that the litigants lay at its door. Some call this pragmatism, but the more knowing call it justice. This description as the last romantic aptly fits today's awardee, Justice Venkatachalaya. The man is as great as the judge. His splendid qualities of head and heart, his unfailing courtesy, unfeigned humility, and innate graciousness, and above all, that lovely quality, compassion, makes him almost the nearest approximation to the ideal as a man and a judge. Knowing him is to have known true wisdom, as Mr. Nariman just now said. He provided moral and intellectual leadership of a rare quality. Being with him makes one grow. I speak from personal experience. I have been myself a beneficiary. His greatness is defined not by power or wealth, but by the true greatness of the spirit. Soli Jahangir Sorabjee, unfortunately no longer with us for the last 1 year, is a giant, a consummate lawyer, a deft advocate, and above all, a gracious human being whose professional eminence and personal qualities puts him on a very high pedestal and in a class by himself. Even amongst his peers, I would say he stood out like a mountain peak dazzling in the last rays of the setting sun. A personality so warm and glittering, his was a career very versatile and colorful. The conferment of today's award is yet another testimony to his greatness. A true legal philosopher, Sorabjee played a remarkable role in endeavoring to inculcate constitutional values in our public life and temper the exercise of power with a constitutional culture. That indeed, I believe, is his true work and contribution. Not many names in the field of law have stirred up the imagination, kindled interest, and evoked respect and admiration, and served as an inspiration as greatly as Soli Sorabjee. He was a leader, teacher, and builder. A leader of the bar, he led the profession with his equipment and integrity. He was a teacher who taught by precept and practice, both law and professional ethics. He was a builder who helped raise the edifice of our constitutional and administrative law. In his long and eventful years of practice, he appeared and argued in some of the most important cases and helped in laying down the law. For about half a century, his unmistakable imprint on almost every case of constitutional significance is manifest and telling. It has been said that some of the celebrated opinions of Chief Justice John Marshall are the arguments of Daniel Webster reiterated. So too with Soli. Some of the foremost cases in our public law reverberate with Mr. Sorabjee's arguments. The story of Sorabjee's life and career, in a sense, is the story of the onward march of public law in India. Carlyle said that tradition is an enormous magnifier. But traditions are not like instant coffee. Each generation would have to imbibe them, cherish and nourish them. Sorabjee lived this and taught by his own life and example. His chamber was a nursery for training a large number of lawyers who attained eminence in the profession and some on the bench. His functioning as Attorney General was remarkable. He was, as Palkiwala said, the guardian of public interest and the protector of human rights. Indeed, the present Attorney General the very distinguished Mr. Venugopal, in a condolence meeting last year said, very few can match Soli's stature, independence, and impartiality as Attorney General. Gentle in manners, unfailingly courteous and polite, he was grace personified. Great liberality of thought, catholicity of approach, combined with sturdy independence, total fairness, and impartiality were his hallmarks. Hero of many a legal battle and celebrated causes, he bore his scars and honors with philosophic indifference. He brought to bear a moral eminence on a highly commercialized legal profession. The man was as great as the lawyer. He fully answered Cardinal Newman's definition of a gentleman. He was a charming person, and when you were in his company, he made you feel that not he, but that you were great. He was a cultivated man, to use the felicitous expression of Justice Frankfurter. Soli's life was truly well lived. He lived it on his own terms. Destiny kindly added years to his life. He wisely added life to his years. The great Nani Palkiwala had told us that while we all join the profession to do well, we must stay in the profession to do good. I believe Mr. Sorabjee would have had the immense satisfaction of being in the law for 68 years and in life for 91 to have done immense good. His legacy will survive the ravages of time and continue to inspire and enrich generations to come. He is not dead whose noble life leads thine on high. To live in hearts you leave behind is not to die. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will fondly remember him. Frankly, but unfortunately, the tribe of Justice Venkatachalaya and Soli Sorabjee is fast dwindling. The likes of them are not easily seen. As Mr. Nariman said in his tribute to the Venerable Homi Sirvai, when they make great men, they break the mold. Of each of them, it may be said to the generations who have passed their lives in the law, and even to those outside the field, his is truly clarum et venerabile nomen, a very illustrious and venerable name. I am grateful to the organizers for this opportunity to say a few words and pay my respects. Thank you all for your patience and courtesy. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pai. We move on with the announcement of the Scotch Law Award for exemplary service to law, and invite Mr. Fali S. Nariman, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India. Fali Nariman is an eminent constitutional jurist. He practiced in the Bombay High Court for 22 years and was appointed a senior advocate in the Supreme Court of India in 1961, a position he retains. He was president of the Bar Association of India from 1991 to 2010 and served on various committees, including the Rules Committee, the Ethics Committee, the Consultative Committee for the Ministry of External Affairs, and the Standing Committee of Parliament on External Affairs. He is an internationally acclaimed jurist on international arbitration and has distinguished himself as an advocate for the protection of minority rights and a proponent of human rights. He is one of India's most distinguished constitutional lawyers and has argued several leading cases. He remained the Additional Solicitor General of India from May 1972 to June 1975. Mr. Nariman.
Congratulations, sir, if you would kindly accept the award. Sir, would you like to address us? Can you hear me?
I have already addressed you. I think chap can't speak twice. But I thank you for this honor. Very, very kind of you. And about the law and about justice, far more intelligent and important individuals have already spoken. And I only wish to end this this response to the citation by saying that I am deeply grateful for the honor you have done me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me come in at this moment and take you through a brief journey of Scotch. You have heard Mr. Kocher speak in the morning. He talked about the difficult times that he faced, the family faced, and unfazed by all those tides which were against him, he did tide through and stood in front of all of you and introduced himself. Let me at this moment take you through Scotch. When you say Scotch, a smile comes on your face and it lingers on till such time you get to know what Scotch are we talking about. Many a times this question has been posed to us in last 30 years of our existence. So much so that when we took our proposal for a Lifetime Achievement Award to Mr. Chidambaram, he said that a Scotch award for a teetotaler? Not really. And in that lighter vein, Mr. Kocher told himself that I am standing in front of you, which is Scotch, which is Sameer Kocher. So acronym comes from his name. But yes, this journey has been arduous, not really been an easy one.
फाउंडेशन को और उसके सभी पदाधिकारियों को हृदय से बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूं कि इस पुरस्कार के लिए उनने मेरा चयन किया है.
Mr. Sameer Kocher's book on Modinomics is being released today. We've just had the benefit of listening to him. I must say he's a very blunt man.
He is really a very resourceful person.
समीर जी, I want to thank you very much. हम लोगों ने सबने अपनी जनता की प्रतिज्ञा ली है समीर जी. ये प्रतिज्ञा लेके सेवा की सोच करके हम यहाँ इस मंच पे आए हैं.
मैं फिर से धन्यवाद देती हूँ कोचर जी को क्योंकि उन्होंने अपनी मेहनत, अपनी लगन से, मैंने अपनी मर्जी से यहाँ आए हैं अपनी टीम के साथ. उन्होंने अपनी जिंदगी का 3 पूरे दिन हमको दिया है.
Thank you very much, Sameer ji, for this opportunity. You said I've attended. This is my 3rd event at SCOTCH.
नीचे से उठ करके ऊपर आने वाले समीर कोचर.
समीर कोचर जी मेरे बहुत अच्छे मित्र हैं.
I congratulate Shri Sameer Kocher.
Thank you to Sameer Kocher for putting together.
So it is not just about the voices of political leadership. It is about the warmth of the platform that eludes. Also says that we are an absolutely apolitical platform. We don't believe in the colors and the hues, and everyone feels extremely and equally comfortable standing with us. Not just because we are Scotch, but because we have had a history that proves we have walked the straight and narrow, have been the voice of sanity, exactly the way, I can't say and I won't say that it is equivalent to the highest institution of the country which has maintained its integrity and also at the same time the independence. We have learned a few things from there and I have tried to keep this high on our shoulders while walk on the ground. We are a 360-degree coverage since 1997. SKOCH Consultancy Services is a consulting company. We have a media arm, publishes Inclusion. We publish books. We've done 18 volumes. We also believe that the power of narrowcasting is higher than the broadcast in the current digital world. So we have SCOTCH TV doing that. And our grassroots interventions are taken care of by SCOTCH Development Foundations. Meaning to say, we are a public policy think tank which believes in taking inputs right from grassroots level upwards. So we are the voice of the people of India, rather than looking at the other way. Happen to be the only author, which is what Mr. Kochhar himself is, whose 2 books have been released by 2 successive prime ministers. And we have had our engagements across various governments at the state level as well as the ministries in the center. When I say we are a voice of sanity, when we speak, it is heard. On the same platform, Mamata Banerjee tweets, and on the other side you can see the Prime Minister also tweets. Meaning to say that our neutrality is always judged and acknowledged. We are a small, not a very rich organization, but we are highly respected, and at the same time, a very, very highly respected brand. Aspirational as we happen to be, these are some of the covers of the volumes that have been penned down by Mr. Kochhar, and in fact, each and every one of them have had a demonstrable impact on the policy. These are our distinguished fellows, drawn from the bureaucracy, media, industry. And we have been guided in our judgments by the wisdom that we draw from these gentlemen. So when we are finalizing the awards, the proposal is examined by the awards committee, which consists of these and many more. Therefore, we say that while finalizing, while taking the proposal, this is backed by research, this is backed by our domain experts, and approved by the awards committee. The respect that we enjoy is exemplified even today. We are honoring you and you are honoring us. So when we honor people, they accept. And when we invite, we are obliged. So thank you very much for joining us today to make this a grand occasion. Thank you very much. And with this, I invite Rohan to take the mic.
If I have seen further, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you, doyens of the bar and the bench, for being amongst us this morning. A big round of applause with humility to each and every one of you. We now move on to the announcements of the SCOTCH Literature Award. It has been our earnest effort every year to discuss and debate the brightest ideas presented in books by the nation's best minds at the SCOTCH LITFest. From the Trenches by Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi. I believe we have Dr. Singhvi's son, Avishkar, amongst us. Dr. Singhvi's book is a memoir of a lifetime in law. In his magnum opus, Dr. Singhvi has given us a first-hand account of cases that gathered seminal importance and captured national attention from the trenches. This book makes for an excellent read from an insider's viewpoint on some of the most important legal questions that have been raised in India, and helps readers in understanding the intricacies of some of the most complex legal battles of our times. Many congratulations.
Just like to thank everyone on my father's behalf. I'm here to collect the award and the commemoration on his behalf only. Thank you very much.
As you may all aware, he's at the Chintan Shivar that's going on. It's a force majeure kind of a situation. Dr. Singhvi is also being honored with the Law Award, which will be physically handed over to him on Monday. So a round of applause for his award for law as well.
India, that is Bharat, coloniality, civilization and constitution. J. Sai Deepak. A rigorous survey of India's political history since the Papal Bull of 1493. In this book, J. Sai Deepak argues that while the colonialization of the Indian landscape may have been reversed, the minds continue to be possessed and ultimately handicapped by a historical narrative that outsiders set for us. It makes for an interesting discourse on the evolution of India's political and social history when the author explores the underpinnings of the idea of Bharat. Many congratulations, Mr. Deepak.
I'd like to thank SCOTCH Awards for this honor. All I can say is that more than the success of the book, to be recognized among your peers is perhaps the greatest of honors or privileges that a lawyer can certainly hope for. So I'm grateful for being bestowed this honor before this August gathering. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a book straight from the heart, My World Within, by Mr. Kapil Sibal, Senior Advocate and Member, Rajya Sabha. In the words of Javed Akhtar, Mr. Sibal's poetry is a synthesis of emotions and intellect, and his poems are felt thoughts. On the day when the book was released, the author had said, "Some thoughts in my previous book, I Witness, had something to do with my past. This one is essentially my present." A compilation of 66 verses composed on his cell phone during times snatched in between his travels and other obligations as a minister. He writes about meter and rhythm central to life, with varied themes ranging from love, desire, friendship, world economy and international affairs. The poems take the reader on a path to discover a universe that is so perfect in its imperfection.
Well, thank you very much for giving this award to me. And I'm really sorry that Dr. Singhvi is not here. I'm sure that Chintan is happening there, but I'm getting the shivers here. But in the midst of stalwarts, I'm absolutely delighted that you have given lifetime awards to two great civil libertarians, one on the bench and one at the bar. And of course, two of the greatest lawyers this country has produced, Fali and Soli. And we rejoice in the fact that you recognize their contributions to society. I thank you for that.
Taxpayer Rights Deciphering the Indian Charter by Mukesh Bhutani and Kinshuk Jha. This book aims to further the discourse on the state of taxpayer rights in India in light of the Indian Charter of 2020 and global developments. It critically analyzes and presents the practitioners' and academics' perspectives on the contemporary subject of taxpayer rights and obligations. Taxpayer rights as an exclusive domain of policy making have seen emergence in the last decade, though it has been practiced for several years in most mature economies. The authors say that if a culture of respecting honest taxpayers and incentivizing the performance of judicious administrators is inculcated, will foster transparency and boost tax morale. Many congratulations, Mr. Bhuvan.
Thank you, Samir. It's indeed a privilege and honor. Being enrolled at the bar in 2010 after practicing most of my career as a chartered accountant, still a student of law. So I'm extremely humbled with this. Thank you very much.
Well, often it's the observation, the perception that there is a mismatch between what we teach in law schools and what is out there in practice. So I think this endeavor which we embarked on, where it's a bridge which we have tried to draw between practitioners and academics. Thank you so much for the SKOCH Group for recognizing this effort.
Many congratulations. Trials of Truth by Gauri Gobardhan and Pinky Anand. Nirbhaya, Priyadarshini Mattu, Jessica Lal, Naina Sani, Vidya Jain. These are cases that shook the moral conscience of the nation, and even years after they have been tried, the names are cemented in people's memories on account of their brutality, the trials and the landmark judgments they resulted in. Trials of Truth addresses these hard-hitting criminal cases and delves deep into the aspects of retribution, reformation and deterrence that the criminal justice system seeks to do.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, Ms. Anand could not be present here today, but extends her gratefulness and gratitude to Mr. Kochar, Rohan and the entire team of SKOCH for having our book on this portal. Thank you very much.
Many congratulations.
Pinky Anand is abroad, and she's also being conferred the SKOCH Law Award, which has actually already been conferred 2 days back.
Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya, The Man and the Judge by Mr. V. Sudheesh Pai, Senior Advocate, the High Court of Karnataka. This book is the journey and evolution of Justice Venkatachalaya, who became a revered judge, a judge of the masses. It covers the life and times of a man who started his life from the bar and took it to the bench, and one whose legacy will mark a period in the history of Indian jurisprudence. A man of law, of a select band, an erudite scholar and a saintly person, Justice Venkatachalaya is one of the most illustrious and revered judges. Mr. Pai has conducted a yeoman service by capturing his life and times.
I'm deeply beholden to the SKOCH Group for choosing me for this award. I'm indeed grateful. Thank you.
Many congratulations, sir. The SKOCH Law Award, instituted in 2022, is a non-competitive award and conferred on those who have made exemplary contributions and have had a definitive impact to the field of law. It celebrates and salutes India's leading luminaries in the legal field who have gone beyond their call of duty to make contributions to law and jurisprudence. The roll of honor for exemplary service to law, Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, Senior Advocate and member of the Rajya Sabha. Many congratulations. Dr. Singhvi is an eminent jurist, an author and a parliamentarian, the youngest designated senior advocate at the age of 34, the youngest additional Solicitor General of India at 37, and the youngest elected Vice President of the Supreme Court Bar Association. It's unfortunate that he couldn't join us in person today. Shri Aman Lekhi, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India. Mr. Aman Lekhi's impeccable character and extraordinary ability to argue difficult legal issues with ease and lucidity make him stand out from his peers. His unmatched legal acumen was on display during his tenure as the Additional Solicitor General of India and the Supreme Court.
It's very special. Thank you very much for getting me here. Thank you.
Many congratulations, Mr. Lekhi. Mr. Arvind Datar, Senior Advocate, Madras High Court, joins us virtually over Zoom. If one happens to look for a lawyer with foresight and one who is also a great planner, there are perhaps few better choices than Mr. Datar. He is one who's always ready to accept change and move on rather than wait for the tide to turn. A prominent senior advocate with more than 30 years of practice at the Madras High Court and Supreme Court, he is a renowned authority on tax, company and constitutional matters, having authored several highly regarded legal commentaries. Mr. Datar.
Congratulations, Mr. Datar.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for conferring this award on me. It is particularly a privilege to be in the presence of Justice Venkatachalaya and Fali Nariman, and also at a function where the spirit of Soli Sorabjee is also there. It's a truly humbling experience. Thank you so much.
Many congratulations, Mr. Datar, and thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Aryama Sundaram, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India. Mr. Sundaram is recognized by his strength, which lies in his ability to think originally, making him easily stand out in the courtroom. He is a huge believer in the freedom of speech. He successfully appeared for Khushwant Singh and secured the release of his book, which had been injuncted on the ground of invading privacy of a particular political luminary. Interesting points of his career include a medical malpractice suit, one of the first of its kind in 1986. The case was filed and fought at a time where there was no kind of consumer protection law available. The trial lasted more than 5 years, when in 1993 the client was awarded 17 lakh rupees as compensation, along with interest, the total sum of which was 31 lakhs. An unprecedented settlement for the first time in India. Many congratulations, Mr. Sundar.
Thank you, Mr. Kocher and the Scotch family. It's always a feeling of great gratitude and a feeling of wholesomeness when your peers recognize anything you've done. So for whatever I've done, if this is the recognition, thank you very much.
Mr. Jay Chima, Principal, JC Law. Jatinder Chima has worked extensively as a legal practitioner in various high courts of India, the Supreme Court of India, regulators as well as arbitral tribunals. He's diversified experience in litigation and dispute resolution. He's assisted the Parliament of Canada as a legal counsel on an ethics investigation and drafted free zone laws of a Middle Eastern country. Many congratulations, Mr. Chima. Not many know this, but he's licensed to practice in over 19 jurisdictions.
Thank you, SKOCH Group. Thank you, Mr. Kocher. I just want to take a moment for all the hours that we spend in our offices. I would like to thank my family, which is here, because they contribute a lot in what we do. Thank you very much. And those of you who know Samir is a great foodie. And every Sunday on LinkedIn, I look forward to a new recipe that he posts. So if those of you are connected with him, please look forward to that. Thank you.
"50 years. 50 years is a long time. And our next awardee completes 50 years at the Supreme Court this September. Mr. Kapil Sibal, Senior Advocate and member of the Rajya Sabha. Mr. Sibal wears several hats, that of a lawyer, a politician and a poet. He was the Additional Solicitor General of India between 1989 and 1994. He was the only lawyer to appear in the Parliament of India and successfully defend a Supreme Court judge during impeachment proceedings. Between 1995 and 2002, he served 3 times as the President of India's Supreme Court Bar Association and made a reputation for himself as a lawyer who defended individual rights against the government. His first cabinet-level assignments were in 2006 when he took on the portfolios for both science and technology and ocean development. In 2009, he became the Minister for Human Resource Development and effected large-scale education reform. Many congratulations, Mr. Singh.
I recall your term as the IT Minister and all the changes you brought about in Department of Posts and the Project Arrow.
We tried a lot of things. A lot of things are working today, so I'm very happy for that. But thank you very much for this recognition. I really appreciate it. The Scotch family.
Rohan, thank you.
Dr. Lalit Bhasin, Managing Partner, Bhasin and Company. Dr. Lalit Bhasin started his law practice in 1962 and developed Bhasin & Co. as one of the largest law firms in India. His leadership skills were recognized very early. At the age of 33, he became the youngest chairman of the Bar Council of Delhi. He was awarded an honorary membership of the IBA in Melbourne in 1994 for outstanding service to the legal profession, and later went on to serve as its Secretary General. He further went on to become the president of the Inter-Pacific Bar Association. It has been his vision to see Indian law firms compete with the best in the world. Many congratulations, Dr. Bhasin.
During 60 years of my law practice, I must admit I have received hundreds of awards and certificates of recognition because of various positions that I have been holding in the bar. But this particular award stands out for two reasons. Firstly, I have never been recognized by a think tank of the caliber of Scotch. And secondly, I could never imagine or perceive that I would be receiving this award on the same platform as Honorable Justice Venkatachalaya, Mr. Soli Sorabjee, Mr. Nariman, and others would receive the award. Thank you.
Let me share this thing with you about the Scotch Award. When we did the first award, the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand then was Shri N.D. Tiwari. He got the award for what he did for the state, and the lady awardee, Grassroots Person of the Year, was a lady called Surajna Devi, who was a Gram Pradhan, again from Uttarakhand, and they got the award on the same platform for the reason that God gave him the ability to solve a problem at whatever scale, and he did. And God gave her the ability to solve a problem at a village scale, and she did. Both are equal.
Miss Pinky Anand, Senior Advocate and former Additional Solicitor General, could not be with us this morning. She has been conferred the Scotch India Law Award for her services to law. Many congratulations, Madam. Mr. R. Venkataramani, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India, has established himself as one of the most erudite and astute lawyers in India, dealing in matters as varied as constitutional law, environmental law, taxation, tribal rights, child and women's rights. Former member of the Law Commission of India, Mr. Venkataramani has completed 42 years of practice in the Supreme Court. He was also a special senior counsel for various departments of the Government of India in the Supreme Court and High Courts between 2004 and 10, and has been an acting counsel of the Supreme Court in matters about the service conditions of employees of the court. He's actively involved in framing laws for several states in India. Many congratulations, Mr. Venkataramani.
He wishes to say a few words to all of us.
My gratitude to my parents and my great guru, Professor Padma Bhushan Madhav Menon, who made it possible for me to come to Supreme Court, and my partner in life, whom I call fondly my editor-in-chief, Mrs. Vijay Lakshmi. And sharing my gratitude to all, and in the company of Judge Venkatachalaya, fond memories I can talk about in great length. And since we all talk about being part of the great family of a nation, I just want to share a few thoughts. While I finished arguing the hijab case at the Karnataka High Court, I traveled to Jodhpur, and sitting in the airport, my mind was so restless about the phenomena unfolding in our country and certain very matters of common concern. So I wrote a small piece which I wanted to share with you, and it was called, I call it the Call of Motherland. I may not be a great poet as Mr. Kapil Sibal is, perhaps in times to come I can match with him. And this is what I wrote. O nation of great mind and thoughts, of past so long and cradles many, that nurtured knowledge of shades many, many. O nation of peoples with ancient roots, with entanglements thin and bosoms large. O nation that knows the dark divisions of faith and caste, like spider webs, can trip and trap. O nation of many tongues and cultures, faiths and creeds, in blend and bonds of fibers strong, why bleed our minds? Why freeze our hearts? Why fence our homes with petty thorns? Swords once drawn or poison strong, words once dropped or slipping weeds. Fold all your clashes. Little divides with constant chases can grow to seismic sizes quick. In composure do all things flourish. Little skirmishes do dissolve. In common pursuits of common weal, little skirmishes do dissolve. O nation of paths in beauty drawn, in common resolve of love for all, let our oars do swing and hail all life. I thank you for this occasion. Thank you so much.
Mr. V. Sudheesh Pai, Senior Advocate, the High Court of Karnataka, a distinguished jurist and acclaimed author specializing in constitutional law and administrative law, having been at the bar for over 38 years. He was also government advocate of the High Court of Karnataka and handled important and sensitive litigation on behalf of the state. He is a contributor to the Restatement of Indian Law on Legislative Privileges, a project of the Supreme Court, a renowned author whose writings have been quoted at the Supreme Court and High Courts. Due to his academic profoundness, he is often referred to as a legal philosopher. Many congratulations, Mr. Pai.
All that I can say is that this recognition is very humbling and gratifying. Thank you so much.
Justice flows from you, my honorable lordships. The roll of honor for exemplary service to law for honorable lordships. Justice A.K. Sikri, former judge of the Supreme Court of India. An eminent jurist and a former judge of the Supreme Court of India, Justice Sikri was sworn in as a Supreme Court judge on 12th April 2013, earlier serving as the Chief Justice of the Punjab and Haryana High Court. Presently, he is an international judge at the Singapore International Commercial Court, Singapore Supreme Court. He was sworn in to the post in August 2019 by the President of Singapore. He is also the chairperson of the News Broadcasting Standards Authority. He specializes in constitutional cases, labor service matters, and arbitration matters. Many congratulations, Justice Sikri.
Thank you very much, Scotch family, for honoring me. When you were mentioning about Scotch, two things which you said and which I digested and grasped immediately was you mentioned about the neutrality. And you said the respect which you have gained or which you have achieved over a period of time. I think these are the two important attributes of any good judge also. If I have been neutral in my life, and if I have earned some respect while performing the functions of a judge, then thanks for this award. Thank you very much.
You also earned gratefulness of a nation.
Many congratulations, sir. Justice Ananga Kumar Patnaik, former judge of the Supreme Court of India. Justice Patnaik enrolled with the State Bar Council of Orissa in 1974 as an advocate. He practiced in the High Court of Orissa and subordinate courts and tribunals in the state. From 89 to 90, he was a standing counsel for Orissa State Road Transport Corporation. And he served in the Commercial Tax Department of the Government of Orissa between 1990 and 1994. He was elevated as an additional judge of the High Court of Orissa in January 94. Subsequently, he was transferred to the Guwahati High Court, where he became a permanent judge in 1995. He became the Chief Justice of the High Court of Chhattisgarh in 2005 and later that of the High Court of Madhya Pradesh. During his tenure as the Chief Justice of both states, he was known for his bold arguments and was seen to be a judge who was pro-poor and strongly supported the underprivileged classes. He served the Supreme Court of India between November 2009 and June 2014. Many congratulations, Justice Patnaik.
Good afternoon to all of you. When I was about to retire from the Supreme Court in 2014, Mr. Sibbal, who was then the Law Minister of India, came to my house one day and said, "We'd like to have you in a very important assignment." I think you recollect that. And I told him, "Mr. Sibbal, after retirement as Judge of the Supreme Court, I don't think I should take up any assignment." Soon thereafter I retired. That's when the government had changed. And Mr. Soli Sorabjee gave the first reception in my honor after retirement in the India International Center. Then two ministers of the Modi government sat on my table. One was Mr. Jaitley, then the finance minister. The other was Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, the law minister. They came and sat beside me and said, "Would you like to take up any government assignment?" I was reminded of what I had told him. I said, "Sorry, both of you, I would not like to take up any government assignment," because I thought then, after Supreme Court, what assignment? That was my approach. Then I always never thought that I would be given an award by anybody. I was not expecting the award also. Years passed by, and then suddenly this award is offered by them. I became very curious, and that day I opened up the pages and I found Chief Justice Venkatachalay's name there. Lifetime achievement. And mind you, Chief Justice Venkatachalaya was the Chief Justice who cleared my name for Judge of the Supreme Court way back in 1993. And he told my wife later on in Guwahati when he came as the Chairman of Human Rights Commission, when he came as the Chief Justice of India, he was the first person whom I cleared below the age of 45. After ascertaining from your Chief Justice that he was exceptional. And I hope one day he comes to the Supreme Court of India. When I saw Chief Justice Venkatachalaya's name as receiving the award, because we judges are very suspicious about who is giving the award. And I, for one, who was doing a lot of arbitration cases, I thought, I hope some party is not trying to influence me by giving an award. Then I ascertained and I found the credibility of this SCOTCH and Mr. Samir Kochar. And I thought, yes, this is really an award given by a good jury, taking information from the consumers of, let us say, legal services. And I gladly accepted this award. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Justice Indu Malhotra, former judge of the Supreme Court of India. Justice Malhotra was the second woman to be designated as a senior advocate by the Supreme Court. In 2007, she was the first lady advocate to be elevated as a judge of the Supreme Court of India directly from the bar. Justice Malhotra joined the legal profession in 1983 and was enrolled with the Bar Council of Delhi. She also served as the standing counsel for the state of Haryana in the Supreme Court from 1991 to 1996. She specializes in the law of arbitration and has appeared in various domestic and international commercial arbitrations. Many congratulations, Justice Malhotra.
Thank you very much for this recognition. It's a humbling experience, and I wish the very best to the SCOTCH family.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Justice R.V. Ravindran, former Judge, Supreme Court of India. Justice Ravindran enrolled as an advocate in March 1968 and practiced law till February 1993. He was appointed as Judge of the High Court of Karnataka in February 2013 and elevated as Chief Justice of the High Court of Madhya Pradesh in July 2004 and as a Judge of the Supreme Court of India in September 2005. On his retirement day, the then Chief Justice S.H. Kapadia had said, "Friends, if you want an Indian hero, a real hero, my vote is for Justice Ravindran. He's one of the greatest judges of this court." After retirement in 2011, he's been engaged in arbitration and mediation, and while as a Supreme Court judge, Justice Ravindran delivered several landmark judgments, including on OBC reservation and central universities. Many congratulations, Justice Ravindran.
Thanks, Kocha and the SCOTCH family for this honor. I thought judges are never felicitated or honored after their retirement. They are recognized when they are appointed. Second, their recognition comes on the day when they retire, when the bar judges them. I was always of the opinion there the work of the judge is over and they should not be thereafter felicitated or honored because they are just doing their work. But when my mentor, Justice Venkatachalaya, was being honored and I was in the same list, it was a great honor. I could not refuse. It was a great temptation, but still I would like the jury to think whether judges should be honored for the work they do as judges. Thank you.
Judges must be honored with the gratitude of people of India who are the consumers of your justice, and for the reasons of the social contract that I mentioned. It is our moral duty to support the judiciary.
Justice Vineet Saran, former Judge, Supreme Court of India, has had a distinguished career at the bar spanning over 30 years in the Allahabad High Court from 1980 to 2002. His innings at the Supreme Court were marked by several landmark judgments on reservations, including Leela Prasad Rao, Tamil Nadu Medical Officers Association, and the State of Punjab versus Davinder Singh. Justice Saran authored the judgment in PAM Developments versus State of West Bengal in 2019, and one of his most notable judgments has been that of the 5-judge bench in New India Assurance Company Limited, where he decided on the time of goods and services providers can take to respond to complaints filed against them under COPRA. Many congratulations, Justice Saran.
Thank you very much, SCOTCH family. I am really honored. I don't know, I am too small a person to be honored in the such distinguished gathering and amongst such distinguished people. But thank you very much, the SCOTCH family, for giving me this honor, and especially when I have just demitted office 4 days back. Thank you.
Sir, I must share with you, Justice Saran is the first sitting Supreme Court judge that I ever met. that was on the day of his retirement. He'd come back after his farewell party. And, I could have a cup of coffee with him to invite him for this function. And sir, while you may have been recently retired, you have given a great impetus to consumer rights. And more important than that, when you said that the government has no special dispensation under arbitration, I think it's a great service.
May I, before inviting Mr. Sameer Kochar, Chairman, SKOCH Group, on the stage to hold the mic, please also inform the awardees that there are group photographs that in my zest for announcing the roll of honor, I missed. And we must take these after the
Yeah, so what we could do is, let's do the group photo first.
Sure.
Let's start with, since there's so many, let's start with the lordships first.
Sure.
And then we'll do in the second lot.
Sure. If I may please invite the Honorable Lordships on the stage for a group photograph.
Kindly come, sir. There are two other youngsters, three youngsters who helped me put this together. One is Rohan, the other is Pranay Lekhi, and his elder brother whose name I keep forgetting. So he's other Lekhi and Lekhi, future. So would you please join us for this picture? What's Pranay's brother's name? Anirudh Lekhi. If I can have this next to me, it would be very nice. In this case, an entire cactus. Come. They are very busy. One brother needs it. May I now invite the Literature and the Law Award awardees to come and join us. May I also invite my wife Manisha Kochar to join us, and Sayan and Deepak Dalal and Gulshan. This should be an all-men photo. Gone out. Lekhi and Lekhi at the back. You need good attention span in the court, my friends.
Oh, Mr. Deepak Misra.
On each side. So, as I told you that we have a I'll call. Yeah, just stay on the stage. You know, we have this thing called, I'm a big guy on sanskar, as I keep telling you. And in our Indian culture, we have this concept of Preeti Bhoj. So at the end of every Scotch conference, there's a Preeti Bhoj, which I personally curate. I hope my taste in food is good. And this is something that everyone is invited, and it's a compulsory part of the award to partake it. Normally such functions have a valedictory address, but since we are Scotch and we are different, instead of a valedictory address, I have invited Mr. Kapil Sibal to recite 2 of his poems, his favorite poem in English and another one in Hindi. So.
Before I do any of this, there's a little caveat that's necessary. You see, Scotch is a neutral platform. And you've called onto stage a man who is by heart not neutral. I always take positions on every matter, wrong or right. Okay? And so, Scotch whiskey is also not neutral. Having said that, let me just recite first a poem in Hindi. मंजिल पे पहुंच के करूंगा क्या, मंजिल पे पहुंच के करूंगा क्या, वहां से वापस भी आना लाजमी है। मंजिल पे पहुंच के करूंगा क्या, वहां से वापस भी आना लाजमी है। ऐसा नशा कि छोड़ कर करूंगा क्या, ऐसा नशा कि छोड़ कर करूंगा क्या, महकाने का दोस्ताना लाजमी है, महकाने का दोस्ताना लाजमी है। दूर होकर भी बता करूंगा क्या, दूर होकर भी बता करूंगा क्या, तेरे शहर में घर बसाना लाजमी है, तेरे शहर में घर बसाना लाजमी है। अपना बना के तूने अब ठुकरा दिया, अपना बना के तूने अब ठुकरा दिया, फिर भी तुझको अपना बनाना लाजमी है, फिर भी तुझको अपना बनाना लाजमी है। गली गली में ये जो आग जल रही है, गली गली में जो आग जल रही है, उस आग को हमें बुझाना लाजमी है, उस आग को हमें बुझाना लाजमी है। खुदा के वास्ते इस दहशती को छोड़ दे तू, खुदा के वास्ते इस दहशती को छोड़ दे तू, ये गुलसिता उजाड़ना क्या लाजमी है। That's the one in Hindi.
Wonderful.
Again, this is one I'm going to recite in English, not a neutral poem. So I hope you don't mind on a neutral platform. It's called Our Gratitude. It says, "We are thankful to our Lord who brought us Achhe Din. We're thankful to our Lord who brought us Achhe Din. Farmers no longer protest. Students speak out with zest. Business flourishes for the rest. No hunger, no poverty. Children charter their destiny. They say that jobs abound, yet there are no takers found. The nation has been transformed, all institutions reformed. All of them speak in one voice. That, I believe, is their choice. No signs prevailing of despair. NGOs have no fear. Sedition laws are crystal clear. All minorities are safe. There is no dialogue of hate. Our nation's assets for sale are due, bought only by the chosen few. These Achhe Din I must salute. Our robust democracy is mute." Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Sibal. Our neutrality comes out of inclusion. We talk about thought leadership through including every major thought process. As you may be aware, I wrote Modinomics. What a wonderful job he did in Gujarat. And if you look at social engineering and welfare state, I think there's a wonderful job that is happening. Thank you very much. With that, I also invite Mr. Lalit Bhasin. He's written a wonderful book that he likes to present.
These are two very valuable books, you see. One is on behalf of the Society of Indian Law Firms. It is a complete list of about 125 top law firms of India. And the second book is 70 Years of India's Constitution, that was released by the Honorable Chief Justice in the year 2020. It's a great pleasure. I ask my family, all lawyers, to join me in presenting these two books to Mr. Sameer Kochar.
Thank you so much. If you could all come this way. Rohan, join us. Now we are all technically Scotch Group, so some can come on that side that's the idea.